Hey guys, and welcome back to the Digital Income Family Podcast. I am so stoked to be here with you guys because we're actually bringing on our very first ever podcast guest, and her name is Shannon from Virtual Career Academy. So for our podcast guests, I want to start doing them at least maybe like once or twice a month from here on out. And I wanted to bring on people that were obviously living the digital income family life. So they make exclusively 100% of their income online. They work and live amongst their family, their kids. Everything is sort of like hopefully in a harmonious, way. And we want to just show that type of lifestyle, what people are able to do working from home in all different niches. So this isn't just course creation like we obviously talk about. It is from maybe like our students or people that we know online and sharing their stories. But I wanted to choose Shannon specifically as our first guest because when I heard of what she did when she onboarded as a student, I think last year, I was blown away because I didn't even know this niche was a legit thing and existed. So what Shannon actually does is she teaches people, regular people, so you don't have to be like a fancy photographer or someone that has like amazing, artsy skills. She teaches regular people how to create imagery and sell that imagery to bloggers. So she has really capitalized on the content creation niche or the need that bloggers specifically have for creating imagery to go alongside their blog posts. So she has obviously retired her husband from this. They do this exclusively 100%. And, through our help, she's been able to turn this into an actual program where she teaches people how to do it. So she's going to walk through what she does on a daily basis, how she's able to grow this business with little kids at home and everything in between. So with that being said, let's get on with our interview. Hey guys. So I am here with Shannon from Virtual Career Academy. And yeah, she's our first podcast guest. We're so excited.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, but basically Shannon is in one of the most interesting niches. I always say it wrong. Apparently it's niche. I don't know. We wanted to interview her. I did really, because I know that like for my audience, I have a ton of stay at home or even just like working moms in general. And this is such a perfect opportunity for people that want to make an income from home. But I also wanted to talk about the fact that you're able to make an income from multiple streams, at home, but you have two, I think, tiny kids. How old are your kids? If you don't mind me asking.
They are 2 and 6.
Oh, okay. That's a good age gap. But but it's still like you have your hands full. So in today's podcast, we wanted to talk about work-life balance. Like how in the world does a mom of 2 tiny kids, create this like full-time business, side hustle? I want to talk about like that, because I think that there's like so many different areas that people could go as far as making an income online, but they don't know what to choose because it feels impossible with small kids,
Right.
Oh, yeah. Anyways, I have some questions for you. So the first one is, can you tell us about, now that I've like talked you up, could you tell us about what you do for a living? Or, I know you do several things, but what you started out?
So what I started out with was freelancing. So I have freelanced now for 8 years, and I started as a general virtual assistant, and then I niched down as a content creator for bloggers.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do as content creators is we actually create recipes and crafts and printables, and we photograph the process from start to finish. And we sell those photos and those packages to bloggers who then feature our work on their websites and on their social media to give fresh content to their readers and their audience. So we're kind of like the behind the scenes creative support for bloggers.
Yeah. Okay. How in the world, like I know you said like you were a virtual assistant, but how did you get there? Because I didn't even know that was a thing.
I started. I'm sorry.
I didn't know that was a thing.
No, most people don't. I started as just a general virtual assistant, but at the time, my sister was a blogger and she was in that whole world, and she saw VAs who were offering this service and they were making really good money doing it. And at the time, I was not at all someone who, cooked or even owned a camera. Like I used my camera phone for my first pictures when I started doing this. I wouldn't recommend that to any of my students, but she got me into it. She introduced me to it, and then I started doing it, and I was like, okay, I'm making so much more money because I've like niched down. It's like a specialized skill, and I just kind of went all in on it. And I still freelance as a content creator for bloggers to this day. I love it. It's so much fun. It's super creative work.
Yeah.
And it's highly in demand too. So it's good money.
And obviously now you teach people how to do that,
Yes.
So that is so cool. Okay. So how do you get in touch with bloggers? Like, I don't know. I'm just interested in this business model in general. Like, how do you just DM them? That's what I would do. I always just DM people, but how do
No. So
okay.
I have built up a list over the years, but most of what I have done to do that is through selling communities set up for bloggers and content creators
Okay.
for content creators basically to sell their services to bloggers.
Yeah.
So that's where I built most of my clientele. And I built up an email list, and then eventually I created an online shop where bloggers could just buy from me whenever. So it's like I kind of can set it and forget it. And I pulled myself out of the whole
Mhm.
sales process that way.
Yeah, that is so interesting. This is sort of a tangent, but we also have another student, and she teaches people how to, like small shops, like if there's like you have little girls, right? You have two girls, but
Yes.
you see those like Instagram accounts, and they have little girls wearing like bows, and the moms take a bunch of pictures, and it's like a bow company.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
she teaches moms how to photograph their children for like these boutique shops. But there's like what the
Oh,
interesting part and like the similarity is I just didn't know any of this existed. So there's like huge communities on Facebook where moms will go to like get, basically like, bows or like clothes or whatever. And these small shops are trying to like find people on the internet and these huge Facebook groups. So
wow.
it's like so random. And then when you told me
It's
this,
such
I
a
was like,
thing you would
yeah.
never even think about.
No,
Yeah.
and this is like the same type of thing. There's
It's the same kind of
yeah,
thing. It's like
groups for
unless
that.
you know somebody
Yeah.
already doing it, you probably would never even like discover it because it's not like a mainstream thing.
No, yeah. That's why, I wanted to talk about like what you do online, because people think, oh, side hustles are just basic things, like selling printables on Etsy or I don't know, like whatever, but it's not. Like there's so many avenues you can go through. So that is so cool. Okay, so
There really are.
yeah. So what made you want to niche down in the first place? Like I could imagine obviously you make more money with taking photos for other people first off, because now you're a photographer, and then you bundle them together. Do you also write the blog posts?
I don't, but some content creators do blogging and do the photography and do the whole works, but I personally don't.
Yeah, I can imagine.
My main focus is on recipes, and I also do printables as well.
Okay.
I do
Oh,
some crafts here and there, but
yeah.
yeah.
And how long would you say it takes you to do this kind of work?
So, like one content package
Yeah.
would probably take me about 3 hours or so. It
Okay.
really depends on what I'm creating, but I say on average 3 hours.
Okay, cool. And I know we're jumping around here, but you said you became a virtual assistant 8 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay. And were you doing that? How long did it take you to go full time with that?
So at the time when I was like a general virtual assistant, I was
Mhm.
also working at a
Yeah.
company outside my house at the same time. So I was just kind of doing both. And then when I niched down, I stayed at that other company for a little bit, but I didn't have to. I mean, the money was like way
Yeah.
better. The money I
Yeah.
was making at home was way better than what I was making at the company. It was more just to get out of the house and
Yeah.
the social aspect of it. But then I got pregnant with my first daughter, and I left that job and I just went all in on content creation for
Yeah.
bloggers, and I've
That
been
is so
doing that
cool.
ever since.
Yeah. So I think now I want to talk about like, I hate to use this word, but it's like work-life balance for me. And I'd like to get your opinion on it. We have no balance of life. Like I
Mm-mm.
feel like, and yeah, most people agree that have had success, because
Yeah.
I've never met anybody that has all the balls spinning or whatever they say, because in order to succeed in one thing, you have to put your all. Like you can't give 20% effort and have like massive success. That doesn't mean like
Yes.
neglect your family or your kids, but what do you
No.
think about that? Like for your own life, like you've been able to do this amazing business and grow it. How has that
I
been with kids?
I mean, I completely agree with you. There is no balance necessarily when you are an entrepreneur and when you have children. I mean, you kind of just work your work into your life. For me, I have, and this has been like a process, like the more that I've done and the more I've taken on as an entrepreneur, the more I've like changed up my schedule a little bit. So times where I used to maybe sit and watch like reality TV after I put my daughter to bed, that is like time for me to like plan out my day tomorrow and get to bed, because I get up at like between 5 and 6 in the morning
Mhm.
and I start my day. That's my time where I have like focus time, where my girls are still asleep, the house is
Yeah.
quiet, and I can work for a good hour to 2 hours.
Mhm.
And then during my toddler's nap time and while my daughter's at school, I have a few hours during the day, and that's like super important time for me
Yeah.
because that's my work time. Car line, I get 30
Mhm.
minutes on my laptop. That's time
Mhm.
when most people would be like maybe scrolling their
Instagram.
phone
Yeah.
and just
Mhm.
sitting there, doing mindless activities. And I've really learned to like refocus my attention
Mhm.
and use that time to grow my business and, you know,
Yeah.
further
Yeah. I mean,
further
it
support my business. But most
totally.
people, I
Yeah.
think most people have more time in their day than they even
Yeah.
realize. We kind of waste a lot of time on things like that. And
Yeah.
we just,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. I mean, it becomes apparent when you look at your screen time, like on your phone. And I think like
Yes.
the average screen time for people is like 8 hours. I read that
It's
somewhere.
crazy.
I'm like, that's a whole day. Like, what is that? But it's because, we stay awake and whatever. Mine is like too long as well. But, I always say it's research to an extent. But
It is. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, we work on our phones too.
it's
And that's
hard.
like one of the first things I do for my students. Like the very first task I give them when they join the Content Creator Lab is I have a schedule and it's mapped out by hour. And it's like,
It's
okay,
so cool. Yeah.
write down what you do each day and what can you cancel out and replace with work time.
Hmm.
Now start to make that your routine because once this course is done, use that same schedule
Yeah.
to refocus and do that for your content creation business and like
Yeah.
use that going forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, this all sounds like amazing, right? It's like, well, they probably, anyone that's watching is like, Shannon's a go-getter. Like, I have no motivation. Like, a lot of people struggle with motivation and they think that they don't have it because they're not good at anything like Shannon is, or like Haley is, whatever. They don't have that special niche. They, suck at everything, whatever. What do you say to people like that? Because like, how do you get your motivation? Like what, I guess my question is like, what is your why? Because life is sometimes hard, especially, I don't know, I just turned 30. So I feel like I'm a real adult now. And wow, I was honestly thinking about the other day, like adult life is very challenging mentally. Like, I'm trying
Oh
not to
my
make it like
gosh.
that, but
It's
oh,
so challenging.
finances and your future. It's like, holy moly. So it can be very like life can swallow you up, especially with tiny kids in that season of life. So
Yes,
like
absolutely.
what motivates you to not mindlessly scroll on your phone and work instead?
I mean, there's a couple different things. I feel like you have to have it kind of burned in your brain
Mhm.
where you see your future.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want in your future? And have that in the back of your mind as like motivation to keep you going. And also setting goals for yourself.
Hmm.
Because if you have goals and you have action steps to get you there,
Hmm.
that's motivating in itself because you have the next step and once I get that done, then I know I can move on to the next. But I think it's more than just motivation. I feel like
Hmm.
it's discipline. Most
Yes.
people aren't naturally just motivated people every
Hmm.
single day. Most
No.
successful people are very disciplined
Hmm.
and they hold themselves accountable. And I feel like that's like the difference between somebody who is successful and isn't is they're just
Yeah.
disciplined because there's times when my daughter will be up like multiple times the
Yeah.
night and I'll still have to get up the next day and work. And it's like, but like I said, I've got like
Yeah.
my goals in my mind and that's what I work towards. And then
Yeah.
I make myself do it even when I don't feel like
Yeah.
doing it necessarily.
Totally. Totally. And I'm definitely not perfect. There are nights where I stay awake till 1 o'clock because it's just like, I do nothing because I'm not a robot. Like, I'm not a machine. A lot of people think that you have to be machine-like and you have to not have self-care time for yourself, but
Oh
you,
no,
yeah, you
have to do
do.
that
Yeah,
too.
you do. Yeah. It's just,
Absolutely.
I think that, yeah, you have to be disciplined, like you said. But I also think something I notice in you, Shannon, is you have like a standard for your life. So I think most people, their standard, and I don't want to put it low because, that's not really what I'm saying, but their standards down here and like Shannon's standard for what she like, deserves of her life and what she feels she deserves is way higher. So you're willing to, meet your standard because you expect more of yourself.
Well, and I also see like, there's like, and I think in your ICA, you talk about like the sprints and like those times in
Yeah.
your life where you're like super busy and super focused and you might have to give up more things during that time. But it's like most of the time you have a lot more freedom when you do that. It's like
Yeah.
by doing those hard things, it actually makes life easier overall.
Hmm.
So it's worth it. It's worth it
Yeah.
to like go
Totally.
all in sometimes and be super focused and
Yeah. And I think nowadays, like it's easy to feel like I've been talking a lot about this on my mom account, but it's easy to feel like a victim, especially when you're trying to run a business. Like as a mom, you feel like, woe is me. This is so hard. I don't have time for myself. I'm burnt out. My cup's not full. All these like, slogans people talk
yes.
about. But we're so lucky to live in 2022 where you can
We
make
really
money
are.
online. Like my dad used to knock on
Absolutely.
doors to get sales, so it's like, we don't have to
Yes.
do that. Yeah.
Well, and I think back to the time, before I started freelancing, I worked in corporate world for almost
Yeah.
10 years. And it was like, I would be sitting in my office and I'd be done with my work at like 2 o'clock. And I would basically just be like a seat warmer for like a few hours
Yeah.
watching the clock. And it's like, I never want to go back to that again. So I'm going to do
Exactly. Yeah.
everything in my power to make
Yeah.
sure I'm set up to not have to do that again.
Yeah. And I think like one of the hardest things for people is even having that initial success. Cause once you have a taste, this is what I tell my students. I'm like, once you have a taste of the, like, I don't want to say the life of freedom because it's not fully freedom, but making it come
Yeah,
online and sitting on your couch, or that's completely opposite to what you're, used to, you now raise your standard, like I was saying. So for you and for me, it's
absolutely.
like, we'll never go back. Like I will do
No,
whatever it takes to not have to be told what to do. But people haven't
exactly.
experienced that and they feel like it's not real or possible for them. But yeah, that's so cool.
Well,
Um,
once you
yeah,
have that knowledge, it's like you don't ever have to go back. It's getting
yeah,
the knowledge so that you're set up to know how to make money on your own. And then, regardless of what happens, you know how to make money. So you don't
yeah,
have to resort to having somebody else pay you.
yeah, totally. So how does your husband feel about you? Does he work online? Like, what does your husband do? I don't think I've asked that.
No, he is. I actually retired my husband
Oh,
as a content creator when he wanted to get out of his job. He was a physical therapist for
mm,
many, many years. And after COVID, like there was just a lot going on,
yeah,
and he was kind of burnt out. And I was ready to go all in on my business because,
mhm,
I'd been a stay at home mom for many years and
yes,
I can only work so much while he
yeah,
is at work. So yeah, it was kind of a win-win. I brought him home. I went full time into my content creation business, and then several months later joined ICA and
hmm,
got started on my program. So he actually has been super supportive. Um, he loves this. He knows this is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time.
hmm,
So he's been really supportive. But yeah, it's been helpful having him
yeah,
here, but he's still super busy. So I still have to like use those pockets of
yeah,
time throughout the day. He teaches jujitsu and he's got a lot of hobbies
yeah,
and things where it takes him away from the house.
yeah.
But
That's so cool. Honestly, like it's the best thing to have a supportive spouse. I
oh,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah,
It makes a world of difference. And
yeah,
he's a super like go-getter, high achiever.
yeah.
So I feel like that has like rubbed
It
off on me
pushes
because I
you.
wasn't always
Yeah.
like super disciplined myself.
Yeah, totally. So how was that transition bringing him home? I mean, he was a physical therapist for probably a long time. Like
Oh
I know,
yeah,
yeah. I know
many,
when
many
Doug
years.
came home, it was like, he was like, what do I do? This was years ago, but what do I do with my time? And I'm like, well, if you find something.
I don't have to worry about that with Brad, with my husband. He is like boom, 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 boom.
Oh,
He's
good.
got so many hobbies. He goes to jujitsu like 5 days a week and he teaches classes and he's just got a bunch of different things that he's into. So like he could do that stuff all day long. I could
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
not even like talk to him and he would be like totally entertained himself. So that's not an issue. It's almost
Yeah.
like the opposite. Like I have to ring him in like,
Yeah.
okay, today I need to focus or I have
Yeah.
calls or I have this. So I need to make sure like you're with the kids today so I can
Yeah.
have that dedicated time. So
Yeah. It's so
it's
funny.
been
Yeah.
it's been good. He's loved it.
Yeah. I was just saying, I don't know, one of my last YouTube videos, Doug and I were talking about men and women and working together. And we said like men love things and women love people, like men love hobbies. Like seriously.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, he'd be like that too. If I was like, have a free day, I mean, he wouldn't be bored for a second. I'd like most people that have kids, but
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So I'd like to talk about social media. Okay. So I mean, I know
Mhm.
you're using social media for years, but you kind of like just started your online presence. How was that? Like, I'm sure that most people that start are nervous. Like, how was that
Oh
transition?
yeah. So I before joining ICA, I like basically had the impression that I had to just create content all the time and try to build an audience.
Mhm.
And you kind of taught me differently, but I wasn't really giving it my all. I wasn't really doing stories as much. I'd never went live before. I'd never done a
Mhm.
reel before. So it was scary. I mean, I'm not going
Yeah.
to lie. I was
Totally.
super nervous the first time I did any of those things because it's not natural. If you've never done
Yeah.
it, it's not natural for anybody. And I'm super private. Like
Yeah.
if you go on my private Facebook account, I've never done a story on my private Facebook
Yeah.
account. And I'll post like a couple pictures of my kids, but I'm super private. But once you do it and you like you say, ripping off a Band-Aid, you rip off that Band-Aid and you just
Yeah.
do it, it gets easier and it becomes a lot more natural, just like
Yeah.
with anything.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I don't think people would think this of me, but I'm like an extreme, well, maybe they would. I'm an extreme introvert. I don't know about you, but I've always
I'm
been,
I'm like a homebody and I
yeah.
just like, yeah, I'm pretty private.
Yeah.
I like people, but yeah, I'm kind of on the fence.
Yeah. It's funny because lately I've been getting questions like, well, can I start a course if I don't show my face? And I'm like, I mean, it'll be way harder. I
You got
mean,
to earn that like trust factor with people.
yeah.
And it's just like with all of us, like when we get to know somebody, we're more likely to give them our money than
Yeah.
if we just see like a logo there. People
Totally.
can't connect to a logo. They want to see
Yeah.
your face. They want to get
Yeah.
to know you and your personality because you're the person they're buying.
Yeah.
You're the person they're
Yeah.
buying
I
from.
know. People buy from people, that's
People
just
buy from
like,
people.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's just funny because I think people assume that you have to be some like extroverted, outgoing person, but you do not,
No,
no. I mean, I feel
no,
like, yeah, I feel like,
it's just,
I tell Doug I have like an internet personality that's more extroverted, but in my own life, I'm like, don't talk to me. Just,
yes, I'm kind of the same
yeah.
way. I'm kind of the same way. I think most people that know me would never suspect that I have like any kind of online presence or that I would ever do like a reel or a story or anything like that. But I do it because it's a way to connect to my audience and let them get to know me.
Yeah, totally. So what are your plans for the future? So you obviously have a program teaching people to do this. But where do you see your business going, just with like how the world is online now?
I mean, at this point, I have my course and I'm also freelancing. So eventually, I want to move out of freelancing and just be able to focus on my course full time and teaching students. And I feel like these days, the past 5 years or so, there's been such a like boom with freelancing. And that
Yeah.
was really, one of the motivators to get this course up and running quickly is because there's such a need for it. So I feel like it's just going to continue
Yeah,
to grow.
totally.
And the more I learn, like the more I'll be able to grow it and focus
Mhm.
on it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that is so cool. I don't think I've ever told you this, maybe you see, but that was actually how I quit my first job is I did something like like what you're doing like years ago, but I was taking photos and then selling the rights to my photos. So it was more like
I
a
remember you
photography
saying that. Yeah.
and I just made it up. So when you told me that, I was like, wait, I did something like that, which is
It's
kind of what you do. So
yeah,
funny.
it is
Yeah.
kind of what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah. So how do you explain to your kids like what you do? Like my kids, they think I'm a teacher, so which I am,
But
but
my kids do too. When I'm in like content creator mode, they think I'm just, obviously they see me taking pictures. So they think I'm a photographer, which
yeah,
I mean I am.
yeah,
I would never call myself a photographer because it's
yeah,
just I don't know. Even doing it this long, I still don't consider myself a photographer. I'm a content creator. But
yeah.
when I'm working through my course and working with students, I do tell them that I'm teaching women how to make
Mhm.
money online like mommy does.
Yeah,
And they think that's really cool. Like my oldest daughter, she thinks that's really neat. She likes to
yeah,
ask questions about
yeah,
mommy being a teacher.
yeah, yeah. So how many hours a week do you work, do you think?
Less than 20.
Less than 20. Do you
Yeah.
have, I know this is a strange question, but lately I've been debating, I mean, this is a constant debate in my life, like how much do I work? Because I can work 100 hours, like there's so
Yeah.
many things I could do to grow the business, but now it's so weird. Like, to be honest, as a, an entrepreneur, you're like, well, and as a mom entrepreneur, that's like the
Yes.
biggest thing. Cause obviously I know men want to be there for their families. They don't necessarily want to work 100 hours a week, but at least in my own experience, I won't speak for everyone else. Like Doug is willing to work whatever, he's like a workhorse. He'll
So
do,
nice.
yeah, whatever's needed. So, but for me, I'm like extreme guilt, so do you battle with like, I mean, I think everyone does, but
Oh,
motherhood guilt?
yes. Yes, I do. But on the other hand, I feel like it's good for my girls to see
Yeah.
mommy going after her goals
I
and
tell
doing
myself
something with
that.
my life. Like I have goals. Not that there's anything wrong at all
I
with
know.
being a stay-at-home mom,
Yeah.
but
No.
if you have that little voice inside that's telling you you're meant for more or you should be doing something more or bigger and you want to fulfill that, like go for it.
Totally.
Your kids will see that and it's going to make an impression on them to want to achieve their goals and go after it no matter what.
Yes. I tell myself that.
But yeah, it's
Yeah.
natural to feel the mom guilt. I mean, when my husband is taking the girls and I know I have work to do, I'm
Yeah.
sometimes missing out on things, but
Yeah.
it's also doing something amazing for our family. So
Totally. Totally.
that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. And whenever I tell my own parents, because they're obviously in their 60s and retired, like hindsight's 2020, right? So they like know everything they should have done and whatever. I complain. I'm like, I
Yeah.
need to be spending more. I need to be doing more. I should plan more things for them or whatever. They're like, Haley, you barely work. Like, please, like we worked 50 hours a week and we commuted an hour in traffic. Like, suck it up. I'm like,
Oh yeah.
I know, but this is what I know. This is like all I know. So
But it's like that was the way it was, and you're
yeah,
away. So that's like your scheduled time away. That's your work
yeah,
time at home when you're like intermingled and you can see like the family things happening and
yeah,
everybody's like working on an activity or something and you're over here working. It
yeah,
makes it more like I can see how it's
totally.
just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. And I think it's like lately I've been trying to have a mindset shift or whatever, like I say, because you can't be guilty for working, because then your kids will think that work is bad and like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
no, I don't want them to think work is bad. And
No.
that's been like a thing that I feel I've been admitting like for a while, so I'm like, I can't have them, I'm grateful for work and work is helping people and,
Yes.
money is good and it's abundant, all those things. But yeah, so lately when we work, we don't, like we make sure that well, don't make sure it's not ideal, but it's okay if our kids are around, so like the other
Yeah.
day we literally recorded a podcast for the first time and they were coloring behind the camera, which honestly they were quiet. The boy wouldn't
That's
do that.
awesome.
Yeah, but they didn't mind. And they, especially my 5-year-old, she asked a lot of questions and I think she kind
Yeah.
of liked seeing it. Usually we don't do that, but
They
we,
probably find it
yeah.
really interesting.
I mean, we were talking passive income ideas. So, but she's interested in anything at 5 years old,
Probably more interested in like the whole setup and what
the
you're doing
camera.
as
Yeah.
opposed to what you're talking about.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. What would you say to people that feel like they don't have what it takes to do something? Because I have a lot of people in my audience that they assume they have to have a big audience. It's obvious. I mean, obviously they don't, because you don't, you just
Oh my
started it.
gosh, no.
Yeah.
I have the tiniest audience. If I think I have less than 600 people on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And if most people who like have that idea probably look at my account and think I'm making no money. But it's like,
Yeah.
it's not the
No.
case.
No, like, no. I mean, it's just funny because I know 7-figure earners with like 1,000 followers, 2,000 followers. Just depends on like what you're selling, obviously, and
Yeah,
how deep you go with your audience. Like surface
right.
level stuff is not going to convert as well. But yeah, people have no idea what's possible because they see influencers,
Oh yeah.
yeah, all the time, and they are driving their Mercedes Benz, but they have like 1 million followers, so they equate the two. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so what would you say if like people feel like they don't have a skill? Like I know you had virtual assisting or whatever you did for like 8
Yeah.
years, but as a
Yeah, I mean, it's a
stay-at-home
more
mom,
obvious skill,
yeah,
but I mean, even things like hobbies or interests
yeah,
or things that you know about, it's like, and you know what? Even if you spend 6 months learning something that you are really passionate about, you can become an expert on
yeah,
things. If you
totally,
really want to teach, you can find things to teach about. Everybody knows something,
yeah,
everybody has something that they can teach somebody else. And
yeah,
like you say, you only have to be like one step ahead of that person. You don't have to teach somebody from A to Z. You can just teach them what you know. As long as you're a step ahead of them, you can
yeah.
always find something to teach about.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, where can people find you? And then also could you feel free to talk about like what you offer, and we're going to provide links depending, because we put this up on like Apple, Spotify, all those things, YouTube. And so we'll put a link below to Shannon if you guys are interested in her program, but I guess you could explain more about your program and things like that.
So you can find me at virtualcareeracademy.com, and on Instagram at Virtual Career Academy. But on my website, I have details about the Content Creator Lab, which is my program that teaches you how to start with zero experience to becoming a content creator for bloggers in 6 weeks. So I teach you how to go from building the knowledge of how to create the content. We actually go through and you're going to be creating content in the program, to selling the content. So I'm actually setting you up with the bloggers. You don't have to go and look for
It's
clients or book
amazing.
clients. Yeah, the whole process, it's all there. And my goal for all of my students is to start making money by 6 weeks
Yeah,
selling their content.
that's so
So
cool. Um, I have a question because I know people have. Do you have to be like a good photographer? Because people will say I'm not that good, but honestly, my iPhone is real good, and I'm not even a photographer.
Oh, I
But
know. Phones are amazing these
yeah,
days. No, most of my students don't have any photography experience.
Okay.
It's all, everything that you need to know is in the course, how to style and, get the shots that bloggers want. I have students who buy cameras in order to start the course. So
Yeah.
photography skills are not needed.
Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. It was such,
Thank
a good
you.
chat with you. So that's pretty much it for today's interview. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching it, or if you're listening to this interview, please leave a review on Spotify, share it with a friend if you got value from it. And thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in our next one. Bye, guys.